Africa Prime, brought to you by Jameson's Select Reserve.
We're talking to Prime Minister Tsvangirai of the Republic of Zimbabwe. Prime Minister, when we took the break, we talked about the fact that, there was no understanding of why you were invited into government when you had won the elections. But I think today people are more concerned about the future. People are looking at Zimbabwe and they see a country whose natural resources rank among some of the best in the world. They also see an infrastructure destroyed but rebuildable. They also see a population well-educated but dispersed around the world. If you were to paint a picture for us for Zimbabwe of where it is going from where we stand today, what kind of a picture can you give us?
Well, I think that the country has gone through a transition, a very difficult transition in which former enemies...
Not opponents.
No, I will define the opponent later. But I think that our relations had become so acrimonious that one would not understand whether these leaders would be able to mold anything for the future of the country. But I want to say after 2.5 years, that foundation has been laid, that instead of being enemies, because we have different political philosophies, we are actually opponents. And that we can sit down and talk about, and disagree, agree, but the country has to move on. So the vision for the future is one where the country is emerging from a conflict. But it's a political conflict. It's not a military conflict. So you'll be able to lay down the basis of priorities. Now, one of the priorities that we need to lay down is the country needs to heal.
For sure.
It needs to heal its past because our people have gone through so many traumatic experiences. So that's number one. Number two is that the economic front, which is the biggest challenge, is that how do you move from stabilization to growth? And you need now to put policies that will encourage foreign direct investment, create jobs and all that. As you say, the country is endowed with so many resources, so we need to exploit that.
Some would say, though, that the stabilization part has already been done. But now, we're now in danger of actually just drifting.
We know that. We know that because over the last 2 years, with the election talk, what has now happened is that the very same parties that were collaborating each other to fold a policy are now in a competitive spirit. In other words, everyone is running back to their own camps and say, we will be doing, because elections are coming. We understand that. But that creates stagnation. So the stabilization has been achieved. What we now need is a policy thrust that will take the country forward economically.
So how then do you characterize what's happening now, where we have the indigenization debate, where the government says, if you would like to participate in a Zimbabwean project, or you own a Zimbabwean mine or a Zimbabwean bank, you sell 51% to the majority Zimbabweans, and then you retain 49%.
Well, I was just talking with somebody who said that the economy is worth 6 billion, where if you say what is 51% of 6 billion, where do you get the money? The people haven't got that money. Now, the thrust of it is an upliftment of the ordinary people to participate in the economy. But better still, it is a jobs plan based on twin policies. How do you create investment? And how do you uplift the participation of the ordinary people? That should be the future. But the indigenization is being used as just political rhetoric. Let me say this. It's supposed to be a collective government position. But the manner in which it is being implemented by the Minister of Indigenization, it appears as if it is a ZANU-PF project. And the MDC cannot be part of a ZANU-PF project. We agree there is need to thrust our people in the mainstream economy. But it cannot be an elitist project where we transfer wealth from a few whites to a few blacks. That is not broad-based.
And some are arguing that the 51% figure is actually unattainable anyway, because why would I bring my money?
But you know what?
So you can control it.
You know what? Because of the discussions and the consultations on the indigenization, sector by sector, there is no sector which has suggested that we should even go for 51. 51 is an aspirational law that was done in 2004 before we came in.
But isn't it troublesome that it's the law?
It is a law, yes. But I said that law has already been mitigated by the fact that we have got sectorial standards, sectorial minimum entry points, and that the 51% remains an aspirational figure.
You were quoted as saying that even 30% minimum is way too much.
I
So
tell you,
what is your position?
our position is that we don't even have to prescribe a minimum percentage. It is dependent, but we can prescribe in broad terms that you should encourage partnership with local people with a view of encouraging more participation. But it has to be broad-based. Which individuals are you going to bring in at what point? And that is the crisis partner. And also, owning a share in a company is not like economic wealth distribution.
Sure.
Because if the company is not making profit, what if you just a paper wealth?
Yeah.
So we need a much more deeper, a much more broad-based program of upliftment than just a few ones.
So, Prime Minister, what are you doing to ensure that you create that environment where this is implementable?
It's difficult at the moment,
right?
Because there's
policy. So nothing really will happen until after the election.
I think the election is the watershed,
right?
Because nursing this inclusive government to reach the election point is actually the objective. Because at the moment there's so much policy discord and so much talking about our own party position rather than government position.
Right.
So we want to make sure that if we can have this roadmap to elections, it is a nursing period in which we can reach. And then each party will have to articulate their policies and their programs much more clearly.
Yeah. So when will those elections be?
According to SADC roadmap, it is based on a process. The constitution, which is currently at a drafting stage.
Right.
And then the referendum. And then after the referendum, we will sit down and say, do we need 6 months, 7 months? We also have to discuss with the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission and other actors before we can come out with a date. But it cannot be a date set by one person.
Right.
My projection is that perhaps in the 3rd quarter of next year would be the ideal, after having completed all these stages.
Right. And in that election, what position would you be punting as the MDC?
Well, our position is that the MDC is the future. ZANU-PF is the past.
They wouldn't agree with it.
It's like a driver looking in the rear view mirror. They don't have anything. How do you have a vision of somebody who is 87? You can only have a vision of the past. You need a new thrust and a new change. And the real change can only come with new policies and new direction for the country.
Sure. And as you say, President Mugabe is 87, so he's been around for a number of years. But in terms of the actors within ZANU-PF, what kind of a dialogue are you guys having? Are you able to formulate a common vision? Because that is the question that a lot of people
that's
are
why
asking.
That's why we have sat together in cabinet. I mean, you come to cabinet discussions. We are really national in perspective.
I'd love to be the fly on the wall in there.
In fact, you will not be able to distinguish who is ZANU-PF, who is MDC. At least on the major policy thrust, on the economy, on social delivery, and all the basic things. I think there is a general consensus that we try to endeavor to build. And so far, I think we have worked well. I mean, some coalitions can break after 1 week. I mean, there's even a projection that this inclusive government was not going to last 6 weeks.
Absolutely.
Well, it just lasted 2.5 years. Not because of selfish motives, but because I think that everyone realizes we can't slide back as a country.
Yeah.
We can't go back to 1988.
Absolutely.
So we can only build on what we have done, which is positive.
Yeah.
And I think that keeps on people together.
Absolutely. In fact, I don't think you want to be Belgium, where I think there's the record of the longest period when they've gone without a government.
That's even Somalia. There is some sort of government.
Indeed. What about your relations with President Mugabe?
I think my relation with President Mugabe has evolved from one of, what I said, a very, very conflictual position.
Sure.
To one where there's some mutual respect. That we are patriots with different views.
Sure.
We all want the best for Zimbabwe. We differ, but we differ respectively.
Yeah. And when you look ahead?
I can only say Zimbabwe's future is bright. There is no reason why that country should, having gone through this very nasty experience, it should slide back to that.
I'm assuming you're running for re-election.
Obviously. Obviously, I'm running. Definitely, I'm running for election. But let's hope that having won one, there's no reason why we should win another one.
What would be your basic conditions for participating in that election?
Well, let's have, we have all got 10 years of experience with these elections. We know what.
10 years
we know the voters' role
50.
is in shambles. We know that the state institutions, some of them get involved. We know there's violence. And we know that it's not just a question of election, it's a question of transfer. transfer of those that have won, the respect of the rule of law, the respect of the will of the people, are some of the fundamental conditions that should apply in this election.
Absolutely.
It's a watershed election, and as some people said, this is a very critical election for the country.
It is definitely very critical. Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai, we have to leave it there. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, George.
And thanking your thoughts. We're talking to Morgan Tsvangirai, Prime Minister of Zimbabwe, about his vision for Zimbabwe and also, of course, about his new book, At the Deep End. That's it for Africa Prime. Join us next week.